Ancient myth is full of larger-than-life monsters, but those myths had to originate somewhere, right? In Greek mythology, the Lernaean Hydra was a multi-headed snake beast confronted by Heracles, known to the Romans as Hercules. Heracles found that its heads quickly grew back each time he cut one off. It wasn't until Aeolus, Heracles' nephew, got the idea to burn the stumps that Heracles was finally able to slay the monster. The concept of a Hydra might have been based on something much less fantastical, but still quite remarkable. Ordinary snakes can occasionally suffer from a condition known as polycephaly, in which it can have 2 or even 3 heads, but otherwise be completely healthy. Snakes with that condition are very rare, but it would only take 1 or 2 sightings of one for it to turn into a telephone game of legends and myths. Regeneration among reptiles is also not unheard of, which might have inspired the detail that their heads grew back.
Will you forget the head-slicing thing?
Greek myths feature several appearances of a kind of creature known as a Cyclops, such as the one Odysseus encounters in the Odyssey. Odysseus is able to trick the giant one-eyed monster by getting him drunk, telling him his name is Nobody, and saying nobody attacked him. Many legends of the Cyclops are set on or around the island of Crete, which was once home to a species of dwarf mammoths, according to nature. Historians suspect the myths originated from Greek explorers finding the skulls of these creatures. A mammoth skull has a large central socket for their trunks, not their eyes. To someone who had never seen one before, it might have looked like an oversized humanoid head with a central eye socket, thus creating the Cyclops myth. From King Kong to Donkey Kong, giant apes are a big part of our culture. Giant ape myths were actually fairly common in the past, too, though the beasts were smaller in scale.
I wish we were going to Candy Apple Island.
Candy Apple Island? What do they got there?
Apes, but they're not so big.
These myths were especially common in the places that actually have apes, such as the jungles of Africa. Throughout centuries of exploration, stories emerged of travelers encountering remarkably strong apes the size of a human or larger. African tribes have stories spanning back centuries. It wasn't until 1847 that the stories were actually verified. Giant apes were actually real, and they were soon given the official name of gorillas. Before that, science had no idea gorillas existed. Some of the legends about them were exaggerated, but there really was a species of large apes science just didn't know about. History and mythology are full of people with fish-like qualities like mermaids. Sirens are part of that bunch too, but different. Sirens are more bird-like, often being depicted with wings or even beaks. They're said to sing a deadly but enchanting song that draws sailors into the depths. What might have inspired these legends is something we're pretty familiar with now though. Manatees or dugongs, both of which have large arm-like flippers and can turn their heads like humans. From a distance, these creatures might look more human-like than they do close up. And when you consider the sailors who reported seeing them may have been malnourished or delirious from seafaring, it's not much of a stretch. Modern vampires with their trendy looks and high society trappings are a far cry from the classic vampire stories. Typically, these involve lots of people dying at once and someone blaming the deaths on a recently deceased person. That person was then exhumed, and inside the coffin, people found the deceased's hair and nails had grown, blood on their mouth or chin, and scratches on the inside of the coffin lid. Modern historians think they know what was going on. Disease and death were very poorly understood until pretty recently. Premature burial wasn't terribly uncommon, and the natural effects of decay was a mystery. Many vampires were actually just people mistakenly buried alive or dead bodies undergoing the ordinary decomposition process, which can include fluid coming out of the mouth and the appearance of hair growth. It's extremely gross, but it's also extremely normal, if you're dead. Every seafaring culture has stories of massive sea serpents. Norse mythology had one so large that it encircled the whole world. In Judaism and Christianity, a massive beast named Leviathan stalks the seas. Plenty of pirate tales also tell of massive sea serpents. One might think sailors have just embellished stories about eels, but there's a more reasonable explanation. One of the oldest living shark species, the frilled shark, calls the deep sea its home, and it looks super weird. The rarely seen frilled shark wriggles through the sea and has multiple sets of barbed teeth, perfect for tearing things to shreds. The frilled shark is so old, National Geographic refers to it as a living fossil because the species has barely changed over the last 80 million years. Another possible culprit is the terrifying goblin shark, which is like something out of the Aliens universe. Either way, you should probably stay out of the water. In Japanese folklore, there are humanoid, amphibious, often turtle-like creatures about the size of a child known as the kappa. Basically, they're mischievous gremlins that live in rivers and streams. They love cucumbers and, oddly, sumo wrestling.
Hey, Kappa! Kappa? Cappuccino? That makes me hyper.
They usually pull mean-spirited but harmless pranks, but they can also sometimes attack or even drown unsuspecting humans. They're also usually shown to have a flat or bowl-shaped head which collects water, and really, it's a great look. Many of these legends were based on sightings of a real animal, the Japanese giant salamander. It's an amphibious creature quite large, and it does have a flat head. The salamanders are incredibly rare nowadays, and they're protected by the Japanese government. The Algonquian people, native to the United States and Canada, have a legend of a beast called the wendigo. The legends vary. Sometimes the wendigo is a monster that eats human flesh. In other stories, the wendigo isn't a physical being, but an evil spirit which possesses humans, causing them to become cannibals and perform other monstrous deeds. In a case of the story actually creating the monster, some psychiatrists have identified wendigo psychosis, a cultural disorder specific to First Nations people according to American myths, legends, and tall tales. It manifests as a belief one has been inhabited by the wendigo and causes the afflicted to suddenly crave human flesh. While the myth of the wendigo started out as just a story, these stories were so effective that wendigos seemingly became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The ancient Mayans have a creation myth where Cipactli, a giant sea monster often depicted with a single huge tooth, was killed, and then the earth was made from the monster's body. Many other cultures have created myths and legends about enormous, oversized sharks, far bigger than any seen today. What may have inspired these stories was encountering the fossils of the megalodon, an ancient ancestor of modern sharks. It was around 50 feet long, according to the Natural History Museum. The fossils aren't exceptionally rare, and it seems that ancient Mayans found some, as they've been found in their caches. So while megalodons went extinct 2.5 million years ago, well before humans came to be, these giant fossilized teeth still freaked out people from numerous cultures. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more messed up history videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.